The law office of Hartwell and Associates buzzed with the controlled chaos that Victoria Hartwell thrived in. At 32, she was already making waves in corporate law, her sharp intellect and ruthless dedication earning her respect from colleagues and fear from opponents. The city skyline glittered beyond her office windows as she reviewed case files, her phone buzzing incessantly with calls from clients who paid premium rates for her expertise. "Victoria, don't forget Emma's birthday party starts at 3, Marcus had texted her that morning. She'd glanced at it briefly before diving into the Morrison merger case, the message quickly buried beneath a mountain of legal documents and conference calls. At home in their modest apartment, Marcus balanced baby Emma on his hip while hanging colorful streamers across the living room. The 1-year-old gurgled happily, her tiny fingers reaching for the bright decorations. Marcus had been a stay-at-home father since Emma was born, his dreams of being a history teacher temporarily shelved, so Victoria could focus on her ascending career. "Mama coming?" Emma babbled, her first real word having been "mama" 3 months ago, though Victoria had missed. That milestone, too, buried in a court case. "She'll be here, sweetheart," Marcus murmured, though uncertainty gnawed at him. He'd watched Victoria become increasingly distant over the past year, her ambition consuming everything in its path, including their family. Victoria's phone rang. Again. It was Harold Morrison himself, the CEO whose company merger could make her career. "We need to meet tonight," his gravelly voice demanded. "The other party is trying to back out. You're the only lawyer who can save this deal." Through her office window, Victoria could see families walking in the park below, fathers pushing strollers, mothers playing with toddlers. For a fleeting moment, she remembered Emma's laugh, the way her daughter's eyes lit up when she saw her. But Harold was still talking, outlining the crisis that threatened to unravel months of work. "I'll be there in an hour," Victoria heard herself saying, her voice steady even as something inside her chest tightened. At home, the small gathering of neighbors and friends grew quiet as 3 o'clock came and went. Emma sat in her high chair, cake smeared across her cherubic face, occasionally looking toward the door with expectant eyes. Marcus forced smiles as he helped her blow out the single pink candle, his heart breaking a little more with each passing minute. "Sorry I'm late." Victoria finally burst through the door at 7:30, her heels clicking on the hardwood floor. The apartment was quiet now, the guests long gone, wrapping paper scattered across the coffee table like fallen leaves. Marcus stood at the kitchen sink, washing dishes with mechanical precision. Emma was already asleep in her crib, exhausted from her big day. Victoria's expensive perfume mixed with the lingering scent of birthday cake, creating an oddly melancholic atmosphere. "How did it go?" she asked, though her phone was already buzzing with another call. Marcus turned off the water, his knuckles white as he gripped the dish towel. "She kept looking for you," he said quietly. "She said mama about 50 times. Victoria felt a stab of guilt, but Harold's deal was still unraveling. "I know, I'm sorry. The Morrison case exploded today, but I saved it, Marcus. This could mean senior partner within 2 years. And then what?" Marcus's voice was sharper than she'd ever heard it. "Executive partner? Managing partner? When does it end, Victoria?" "When we're financially secure. When Emma can have everything she needs." Victoria's defensive tone masked the doubt creeping into her voice. Marcus laughed bitterly. "She needs her mother. I need my wife. But you've already chosen what matters most to you." The argument that followed was the culmination of months of growing resentment and missed connections. Words were said that couldn't be taken back, accusations hurled like weapons designed to wound. By midnight, Marcus was packing a suitcase, while Emma slept peacefully, unaware that her world was about to change forever. "This isn't permanent," Marcus said as he lifted the sleeping child from her crib. "But I can't watch you disappear completely. When you're ready to be a mother and a wife instead of just a lawyer, You know where to find us." Victoria stood frozen. In the doorway, as Marcus carried their daughter into the night, her career triumph suddenly feeling like the hollowest victory imaginable. 3 years had transformed Victoria Hartwell into everything she thought she wanted to be. At 35, she was the youngest senior partner in the history of Hartwell and Associates, her corner office overlooking the city she'd conquered through sheer determination and 70-hour work weeks. Awards lined her walls, newspaper clippings celebrated her victories, and her bank account reflected her success. Yet the apartment she returned to each night felt like a mausoleum of her own making, 200 miles away in the coastal town of Millbrook. Marcus had found a different kind of fulfillment. The salt air carried the laughter of children as he supervised recess at Millbrook Elementary, where he'd finally achieved his dream of teaching fourth-grade history. His students adored him, partly because he had a gift for making the Revolutionary War sound like an adventure story, but mostly because he understood what it meant to rebuild from broken pieces. Emma, now 3 years old with Marcus's gentle eyes and Victoria's determined chin, was the undisputed sunshine of the small town. She helped Mrs. Patterson tend her garden, charmed the postal worker with her gap-toothed smile, and asked endless questions that Marcus answered with the patience of someone who'd learned to treasure every moment. "Why don't I have a mommy like Tommy?" Emma had asked one evening as Marcus tucked her into bed in their cozy cottage near the beach. Marcus's heart clenched, but he kept his voice steady. "You do have a mommy, sweetheart. She just lives far away and works very hard. Does she love me?" Emma's innocent question nearly undid him. "Very much," Marcus whispered, hoping it was still true. Victoria's routine had become mechanical. Work, gym, take-out dinner, wine, sleep, repeat. She'd mastered the art of not thinking about what she'd lost, filling every moment with depositions, client meetings, and strategy sessions. But sometimes, walking past toy stores or hearing a child's laugh on the street, the carefully constructed walls would crack. Her brother Thomas had tried to intervene several times, showing up at her office with concerned eyes and gentle lectures about family. "You know where they are, Victoria. Marcus isn't hiding. He just wants you to choose them. I can't just abandon everything I've built," Victoria would reply, gesturing at her empire of legal precedents and professional achievements. "You already abandoned everything that mattered," Thomas had said during their last conversation, his words hanging in the air long after he left. Ben Torres, Marcus's college friend and now Millbrook's only pediatrician, had become something of an uncle to Emma. He'd been there the night Marcus arrived with a crying baby and a broken heart, helping him find the cottage, connecting him with the teaching position, never asking for details about the elegant woman in the framed photo that Marcus kept face down in his bedroom drawer. "You could call her," Ben suggested one evening as they watched Emma build sandcastles on the beach. "Let her know how Emma's doing. Kids change so fast." Marcus shook his head. "She knows my number. She knows where we are. The choice has to be hers." What Marcus didn't know was that Victoria drove to Millbrook once every few months, parking across from the elementary school at dismissal time. She'd watch through tinted windows as her daughter skipped out of the building, her backpack bouncing, her hand safely tucked in Marcus's. Emma had grown tall and confident, her vocabulary clearly advanced for her age, her movements graceful and sure. Victoria never got out of the car, never called out. She told herself she was protecting them from disruption, but the truth was simpler and more devastating. She was terrified that the child she'd abandoned wouldn't want her, and that Marcus had every right to refuse her. During her last visit, she'd watched Emma fall and scrape her knee on the playground. Marcus had scooped her up instantly, kissing away her tears, and Victoria had gripped her steering wheel until her knuckles went white, wanting nothing more than to run to them both. Instead, she'd driven back to the city, worked until 3 in the morning, and pretended her success was enough to fill the Emma-shaped hole in her heart. Marcus's cottage was smaller than Victoria had imagined, but it radiated the warmth that their city apartment had never achieved. Emma led her on a grand tour, proudly showing off her purple cast to Goldie the fish, who swam in excited circles at the attention. "This is my book corner," Emma announced, gesturing to a cozy nook filled with picture books and stuffed animals. "Daddy reads to me every night. Do you like stories?" Victoria nodded, her throat tight. "I used to love stories when I was little." "What was your favorite?" The question was so simple, so innocent, yet Victoria struggled to remember. When had she stopped reading for pleasure? When had stories become briefs and depositions instead of adventures and fairy tales? Marcus appeared in the doorway. "Emma, it's almost bedtime. Say goodbye to Victoria." "Can she read me a story?" Emma asked, her eyes bright with possibility. The silence stretched uncomfortably. Victoria saw Marcus's internal struggle, his protective instincts warring with something else, maybe hope, maybe simple exhaustion from carrying everything alone. "Please, Daddy, just one story." Marcus relented with a sigh. One story, then teeth brushing and bed. As Emma scampered off to choose a book, Marcus pulled Victoria aside. "She's been asking about you more lately. I don't know why." "What do you tell her?" "The truth, that you're her mother, that you love her, but that grown-ups sometimes make mistakes." His voice was measured, careful. "I won't lie to her, Victoria, but I also won't let you hurt her." Emma returned with a worn copy of Where the Wild Things Are, climbing into Victoria's lap with the trusting ease of childhood. As Victoria read about Max's journey to where the wild things are, she felt something inside her chest unclenching for the first time in years. "Why did Max go away from his family?" Emma asked when the story ended. Victoria looked down at her daughter's upturned face. "Because he was angry and wanted an adventure. But he learned that home is where love is." "Did Max's mommy miss him?" "Yes," Victoria whispered. "Very much." After Emma was tucked into bed, Victoria and Marcus sat on his small porch, the ocean breeze carrying the scent of salt and possibility. The silence between them was different now, not comfortable but not hostile either. "She's wonderful," Victoria said finally. "You've done an amazing job." "We've done an amazing job," Marcus corrected gently. "She has your intelligence, your determination. She just uses it to build sandcastles instead of legal empires." Victoria flinched at the subtle barb, but she deserved it. "I know I have no right to ask, but could I see her again? Not take her? Just be part of her life somehow?" Marcus studied her face in the moonlight. "Why now? What's changed?" Victoria struggled to articulate the transformation that had begun the moment she'd seen Emma in that hospital bed. "I thought success would be enough. I thought if I could just achieve everything I'd planned, I'd feel complete. But I've been running on empty for 3 years, Marcus. Today, seeing her, reading to her, I remembered what happiness actually feels like. And your career, the partnership you fought so hard for? I don't know," Victoria admitted. "I can't just abandon it, but I can't abandon her either. Not again." Marcus was quiet for a long moment. "Grace Miller is a family counselor in town. If you're serious about this, really serious, we start there. Supervised visits, therapy, taking it slow. Emma's welfare comes first, always." Victoria nodded eagerly. "Whatever it takes." "This isn't about what you want anymore, Victoria. It's about what Emma needs. If you can't handle that, if you change your mind when things get difficult or inconvenient, it's better to leave now." The words stung, but Victoria knew they were fair. "I understand. I won't let her down again." Over the following weeks, Victoria made the drive to Millbrook every Saturday, meeting with Grace Miller. A woman in her 50s whose gentle but direct approach reminded Victoria why she'd once considered psychology before law school claimed her. The sessions were difficult, forcing Victoria to confront the choices she'd made and the damage she'd caused. Emma doesn't understand abandonment in adult terms, Grace explained during one particularly challenging session. To her, Mommy just wasn't there. Building trust takes time, consistency, and putting her needs above your own comfort. Slowly, tentatively, Emma began to warm to these Saturday visits. Victoria would bring books, art supplies, and most importantly, her undivided attention. She learned about Emma's friends, her favorite songs, her fear of thunderstorms, and her dream of becoming a marine biologist to help the fishies. One Saturday, as they built an elaborate sandcastle, Emma looked up at Victoria with serious eyes. "Are you going to stay this time?" The question pierced Victoria's heart. "I'm going to try very hard to always be here when you need me." "Promise?" Victoria looked toward the cottage where Marcus watched from the window, his expression unreadable, but not unkind. She thought about the life she was slowly, carefully rebuilding, not the life she'd planned, but perhaps the one she'd actually needed all along. "I promise," she said, meaning it with every fiber of her being. 6 months after that first hospital encounter, Victoria stood in her corner office, packing the last of her personal items into boxes. The morning sun streamed through windows she'd once seen as symbols of her triumph, but now they just felt like barriers between her and the life she wanted to live. James Morrison, her former colleague and the son of the CEO whose merger had cost her everything, knocked on her doorframe. "Last chance to change your mind. The partners are still hoping." "This is just a sabbatical," Victoria smiled, the expression more genuine than any she'd worn in years. "I'm not running away this time, James. I'm running towards something." She'd negotiated a reduced partnership role, consulting from Millbrook 3 days a week while maintaining a small practice focused on family law, a fitting irony that wasn't lost on her. It wasn't the empire she'd once built, but it was sustainable, meaningful, and most importantly, it allowed her to be present for the people who mattered most. In Millbrook, Emma was thriving in ways that filled Victoria with both pride and regret for the time she'd missed. The 4-year-old had recently started calling Victoria Mama Vicky to distinguish her from her doll's mamas, and each time she heard it, Victoria felt like she could fly. "Mama Vicky, watch me," Emma called from the monkey bars where she'd fallen months earlier. This time, she made it all the way across, her purple cast long since replaced by a faint scar and a story she told with dramatic flair. Marcus clapped from his spot on the park bench where he sat with Victoria, their relationship still undefined, but growing warmer each day. "She's fearless," he said with parental pride. "She gets that from both of us," Victoria replied, then caught herself. "I mean, you're right," Marcus interrupted gently. "She does get it from both of us. The good parts, anyway." Their family counseling sessions with Grace Miller had evolved from crisis management to genuine healing. They were learning to navigate co-parenting, rebuilding trust, and slowly rediscovering the people they'd been before ambition and resentment had driven them apart. "I have something to tell you both," Victoria said that evening as they tucked Emma into bed. The little girl had insisted on having both parents for story time, a development that made Victoria's heart sing. Emma sat up with excitement. "Are you staying for pancakes tomorrow? Daddy makes the best pancakes." "Yes, I'm staying for pancakes," Victoria laughed. "But also I wanted you to know that I'm moving to a house here in Millbrook. I'll be close by whenever you need me." Emma's eyes grew wide. "Really? Like really, really?" "Really, really," Victoria confirmed, pulling out her phone to show Emma pictures of the small cottage she'd purchased just 3 blocks away. It wasn't grand, but it had a garden for growing vegetables and a porch swing perfect for reading stories. That night, After Emma had finally fallen asleep between her parents on the couch during a movie, Marcus and Victoria found themselves talking quietly in the kitchen. "Are you sure about this?" Marcus asked, not unkindly. "Small-town life is different from what you're used to. There's no nightlife, no high-powered colleagues, no cases that make headlines." Victoria looked through the kitchen window at the garden where Emma had helped Marcus plant tomatoes, at the refrigerator covered in crayon drawings and school photos, at the life they were tentatively rebuilding together. "I spent so many years chasing things that looked like success," she said softly. "But success isn't corner offices or newspaper headlines. It's Emma asking me to help her with her homework. It's you trusting me enough to co-parent. It's going to sleep at night knowing I haven't missed anything important." Marcus nodded, something shifting in his expression. "Grace thinks we should consider couples counseling, not necessarily to get back together, but to figure out how to move forward as a family, whatever that looks like." Victoria felt her heart skip. "I'd like that. I'd like to try." 6 months later, as Victoria stood in Emma's school auditorium, watching her daughter's kindergarten graduation, she marveled at how completely her definition of achievement had transformed. Emma spotted her in the crowd and waved enthusiastically, her gap-toothed grin radiant with joy. Marcus reached over and squeezed Victoria's hand, not romantically, but as partners in the most important venture either of them would ever undertake, raising their remarkable daughter. "She wants to be a teacher like you when she grows up," Victoria whispered to Marcus. "Last week she wanted to be a dolphin trainer," Marcus whispered back. "The week before that, a lawyer like her mama." Victoria laughed softly. "God help us. If she has my ambition and your stubbornness, she'll change the world," Marcus said with certainty. As Emma walked across the tiny stage to receive her graduation certificate, Victoria realized that she hadn't lost anything by leaving her old life behind. She'd simply found her way back to what had always mattered most. She'd just been too blind to see it before. The greatest case she'd ever won was the one that had taken her 3 years to realize she was fighting. The case for her family's forgiveness and the chance to finally come home.